What's up, YouTube? Today, I'm happy to bring to you the live interview with Charlie Lee that was hosted on my stream just a few days ago. Hope you enjoy. Chat, welcome. Charlie, welcome. Oh,
Hey,
how are you doing? Thank you for setting time aside for joining us today. Um, it's funny. So you came on this show, this stream. It's almost a year and a half ago. I guess it was. I forget how many months it was, but you were one of my first interviews of any kind all the way back then. So thank you for coming back and catching up with us today. So let's kind of catch up. What do you, I know we'll get into MWEB and kind of everything, but what have you been doing? What have you been up to lately?
last time when I was here, did we talk about like MWeb and Litecoin stuff? I forgot what we talked
I
about.
think it was in the playbook at the time. It was something you were looking at, but this was back in 2020, kind of early to mid 2020. So you didn't even have this. I mean, look how code complete was what March 15th says your roadmap here, and so this
Yeah,
was probably a year before that almost.
yeah. I mean, the past 2 years we've been working on this MWeb feature, which just launched. So it's been exciting.
Yeah, this is a big deal. What do you think of the Bitcoin market right now? And I know so my stream, and here's the preface, Charlie. What we do a couple times a week is look at the charts and try to make an educated guess as to what's about to happen based on the charts. So nothing to do with news, all to do with charts. So anything,
Yeah.
with that being said, like, what's your take on things, and how do you look at the ups and downs of the market, that kind of thing?
Well, I've been in this space for what is it, like 11 years now? So I've seen it all, right?
Yeah,
Every 3, 4, 5 years we see a full cycle, right? It seems like it follows the Bitcoin halving of 4 years. So everyone thought we were going to do 100K this year. We're talking about Bitcoin prices. People were talking about like super cycle. I wasn't as crazy and bullish about that. I thought we'd just have a normal cycle, which we did. We went up like 3 times, 4 times. I'm talking about Bitcoin, like from previous all-time high to this time. And now we crashed back down, like 50% down. And I expect to see kind of the same thing, right? We'll be in this bear market for a little bit, some consolidation, and just after the next halving, we'll shoot for next newer highs.
yeah, I think that's a perfectly reasonable approach. There seems to be this thing that happens with respect to Bitcoin, where every time we get at or near the top, everyone's talking about 50% more or 100% higher. And then the same thing seems to happen at the lows. Like every time we get to what in hindsight ends up being the bear market lows, everyone's talking about how, hey, we're gonna drop another 50% or go even lower. Do you ever keep tabs on the sentiment like that, or even make a little trade here or there based on that?
Um, well, like I think it's Warren Buffett that said, right, when there's blood in the street, it's a good time to buy,
Right.
right? So my philosophy is just buy low, sell high, right? So I mean, it's easier said than done, but if you as long as you're not all in, you have some ammunition left. Just dollar cost average buy in when it's low, and do the same when it's high, and that's
Sure.
kind of how you make some money. But in general, I think crypto is still on the uptrend. It's just there's cycles right up and down, and it's very volatile. So I hate to see when people buy in at the high, because that's when they hear about it and when they think it's going to the moon. And then when it crashes 50%, they bought in more than they can afford to lose, and they're forced to sell to pay for food and stuff.
Yeah.
I hate seeing that. And so, and that happens, unfortunately.
Understood. Okay, so somebody in the audience is asking, and it kind of it reminded me that we didn't even do this. Charlie, who are you? Who even are you? Why are you even here? What have you done? What's your claim to fame here? Which is hilarious that people don't know
Um,
you, but let's just let
that's
you do it.
that's fine. I've been in a crypto space for 11 years, so I'm like really into crypto, right? And I created Litecoin, one of the original cryptocurrencies or altcoins. Litecoin has been around for over 10 years, 10 and a half years. And yeah, I was previously a director of engineering at Coinbase. I left 4 years ago, and then focus on Litecoin right now, working with the Litecoin Foundation on pushing for adoption and working on development of Litecoin.
Okay. Now, you kind of hit on something that reminded me. You put out a really good thread not too long ago. I guess the date here is October 7th, 2021. Chat, I'm going to put this in the in the chat. And you looked back through the history of Litecoin and you gave a lot of background. And I really enjoyed reading through this. I read through it back then and then refreshed myself again a couple days ago, in preparation for having you on. But one of the things you said in there, which really jumped out, there's a number of things, but the big one to me was how you wanted to bring SegWit to Litecoin as a way to show the Bitcoin community that it would be good for Bitcoin also. And so I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on that and have you expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so this was it was 2016 when I started thinking about SegWit. I was working at Coinbase at the time, and I saw that SegWit, the upgrade, kind of stalled on Bitcoin because there was a lot of FUD. There was big blockers pushing a lot of FUD about SegWit being bad for Bitcoin. So I figured that this was something Litecoin can actually help with Bitcoin, which was to get SegWit activated. So the problem with so Bitcoin is more decentralized than Litecoin, right? There's the problem with that is it's harder to make changes. For Litecoin, I can come out and say I support SegWit. Kind of this is my vision of where I want Litecoin to go, and the community would listen to me, right? Would follow and help push that. Whereas with Bitcoin, there's the founder left, right? Satoshi's no longer around. So there are people pushing like, this is Satoshi's vision. Satoshi wants big blocks, so we shouldn't do SegWit. And it's hard for anyone to say that's wrong because Satoshi's not around to say that's not his vision. And people read the tea leaves and read the white papers and try to figure out what he wants to do, which is kind of silly. So I figured that with Litecoin, I can do some good, right? Which is to get it activated on Litecoin, prove the game theory aspect of SegWit, right? So Bitcoin, crypto, it's all about game theory, right? Mm-hmm. The whole mining, the whole thing is that the miners are profit driven, so they won't attack the coin because that hurts their profit, right? And so by doing what is good for them actually helps the network. And the same thing applies with an upgrade on SegWit, right? They're protecting the network, so there's no reason for them to attack. There was a lot of FUD about how when SegWit activates, anyone or miners can just steal money from SegWit addresses, and that's just total BS. And unfortunately, stuff like that cannot really be tested on testnet because testnet coins have no value. So there's no incentives to attack testnet Bitcoin to steal any testnet coins.
And that's why you put the $1 million bounty, so to speak, into the live. Yeah.
So when SegWit launched on Litecoin, it really proved that, after a couple months with $1 million of coins in Litecoin SegWit addresses and no one able to steal it, it just proves that this actually works and it was all FUD to start with.
Right, that's great. Okay, so two thoughts there. The first thing is, you mentioned, well, Satoshi's not here to really speak for his vision, that kind of thing. I mean, wouldn't this all be easier if you finally just came out and told everyone that you are Satoshi, and then you could speak for it, right? Did I get him, chat?
If that was the case, I wouldn't come out anyway. So,
okay, almost. That was close.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, it's funny. I made a joke about one of the first conferences I was invited at to speak at. This was like in 2013, and I said the only reason why you invited me to speak is because you can't find Satoshi.
I've heard you say that before.
Yeah, um, and yeah, it's fine.
Do you believe that though?
And
Do you really, like, in your core, do you believe that?
yeah, I mean, if Satoshi was around, like no one would care about me. I mean, I love to talk to Satoshi also. I mean, I wish he would be around for people to pick his brains and just talk about like the early uh, happenings with Bitcoin and his vision about where Bitcoin would go. And also, it would be cool to actually hear about what he thinks about the block size wars, whether he's a big blocker or a small blocker, if he's changed his mind and stuff like that. Yeah.
So look, let me put it this way. There how many? What, 10,000 different coins out there? Probably more. You look at the Dex coins and that kind of stuff. You're one of the crowd favorites. Okay, whether and I know that there's been some stuff in the past that gets people riled up, right? This, that, and the other, and you've had your share of controversy. I'm not saying you haven't, but at the end of the day, like, I would rather be talking to you, who has found a way to help Bitcoin adoption and really is a closet Bitcoin maxi, despite being, you know, the figurehead for Litecoin and stuff like that. I'd rather be talking to you than say Vitalik or Alameda or any of these guys. I think you sell yourself short personally. So
Thank you.
I think you are, like, well respected and everything. I said earlier that your previous comments talking about the game theory of Bitcoin and game theory of Litecoin and what you're doing, that it brought up two thoughts, and one was the joke about you being Satoshi, which he's not, or hasn't admitted to yet. The other, though, the other question that came to mind is how. So again, I am a Bitcoin maxi. Let's just clear the air there, but I'm going to put on my devil's advocate hat, and I want to hear your response. A lot of the pro Ethereum, pro proof of stake community, which we're, you know, even the government seems to be getting involved with. Just this morning, they talked about you know, fossil fuels and how evil they are, and so they're going to stop. They're going to put a stop to proof of work mining in New York for a period of time. That's like some fresh news, what, 6 hours ago, something like that. So this is in the air. This is a conversation. So what would be your response to somebody who says, well, the game theory of proof of stake coins is the same or relatively the same as the game theory behind large miners for proof of work coins?
So it's very different, right? Proof of stake, first of all, there's a distribution difference.
Agreed.
Right. So you want the distribution to be fair, right? This is one of the key things when I launched Litecoin, is try to be as fair as possible. With proof of stake, basically the coins are just given out, right? So I'm talking about coins that start off with proof of stake, like Ethereum started off with proof of work and then switched to proof of stake. But in general, proof of stake coins have just really bad distribution, where, I mean, even with Ethereum, where large players control or were given like tons of coins, a big percentage of the coins, and that's not good for money. We're working towards like a more fair system, and that makes it even worse for proof of stake, where whoever has the most money has control, right? So that compounds the issue, where proof of stake, the wealthy still control the system, which is what we're trying to get away from.
Agreed. So you have this crypto oligarchy, I think is how I've heard it referred to, and I like that.
Yeah. Yep. Speaking of Bitcoin Maxi, you say you're a Bitcoin Maxi, but what's your definition of Bitcoin Maxi? Is it there's two, right? One is if you actually think Bitcoin will be the dominant cryptocurrency, and the other is a more extreme viewpoint where you think Bitcoin will be the only cryptocurrency that will survive and eat up the rest of the market cap of every other coin out there.
Ooh. Okay. So yeah, fair question. The way that I perceive Bitcoin is that it is the apex of all money, including non-digital. I think that it is the path that the world is moving toward. And I do think that you talk about game theory. I think the game theory, the board is being set for Bitcoin to be the global reserve currency. And I am not a maxi enough to say this is happening in the next year or 5 years or whatever. It could be 50 years for all I know. But all I see is this trend of governments not trusting each other, not respecting each other, and there's going to come a point where some third party alternative is going to, it's probably, in my opinion, going to fill the void and kind of fill in where the dollar is leaving. So there's this wake that as the dollar recedes as the global currency, the favorite currency globally. There's going to be this time where, oh, should we use China's currency? Should we use Russia's currency? Well, for their deals, well, and there'll be this, I'm sure, this transition period. But once the waters kind of calm, I suspect that eyes will look toward Bitcoin. So that's part of it. The other part of it is, I do think that it is where the sophisticated big money investor has enough confidence that that's where they're going to put their money. Everybody loves a Doge 100x run, or Solana going from $1 to $200 or whatever it is. Like everyone wants to make the money, and I get it, but that doesn't mean that's where smart money and big money, the billionaires and larger, are willing to trust their kids' inheritance. Making a buck and trusting it for decades are two different things, and I think Bitcoin is building that base to earn the trust of the world and the markets. And I think Ethereum is a great polar opposite with their whole move fast and break things, while Bitcoin just moves slow and takes its time, but makes really smart improvements, whether it's SegWit or Lightning. So yeah, did that explain? Did that answer your question?
Well, you haven't said if you think Bitcoin will be the only coin that would exist.
No, okay.
Right?
So because people gamble, and because there's always this, well, what if this? What if that? Because there's always a snake oil salesman in the room. I don't think it will be the only coin to exist. I think there will be thousands forever. I think, and they will go up and down, and people will make and lose fortunes. And I'm sure this will continue till the end of time. But I think the only real one, the only true currency that will grow to global adoption and maintain it for decades is Bitcoin. That's how I perceive it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think Bitcoin is the dominant cryptocurrency. It's the reserve cryptocurrency, and it will stay that way, unless something crazy happens, right? Sure. And there will be multiple cryptocurrencies used as money, and like right now keep happening. It's not going to like people like choice, and there's different reasons why people use Litecoin over Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And that will continue to be the case.
I've been doing that for the last 2 years, by the way, in the stream. If I hold a giveaway and someone wins $10 or $20 or whatever, there was a time I couldn't even make a withdrawal, let's say off an exchange, for below $15, I think it was at the time. So if I'm moving, let's say, funds from an exchange to an individual's wallet, and so it's just way easier to use Litecoin. It was faster. People just immediately were like, "Oh yeah, we got it. We're good." So I have been a big Litecoin user over the last couple of years.
Yeah, a lot of people use Litecoin for payments and stuff. Yeah, it's just easier, and it works. It's been kind of, the uptime is 100%, right? It's been up and running, no issues for over 10 years, which is pretty incredible. Yeah, so the other reason, I've talked about this in other places, the other reason why I think it's having different other coins other than Bitcoin actually helps the whole cryptocurrency movement.
Okay.
It removes the single point of failure. Mm-hmm. So if Bitcoin was the only coin out there, it's just easy for governments or whoever to take it down, right? If they want to take down Bitcoin, let's say the U.S. government thought Bitcoin was a threat, and they want to take it because it's a threat to the reserve currency status of the U.S. dollar, right? So if the government thought it was a threat and wanted to take it down, and Bitcoin was the only coin that exists, all they had to do is print infinite amount of fiat make millions of ASIC machines and overrun the network, right? Just take over the network
Sure.
and mine empty blocks, basically stop Bitcoin dead in its tracks. And that's doable, right? It's far fetched, but it's within the means of the U.S. government to do that if they wanted to.
Right.
And when that happens, then Bitcoin is dead, right? And the whole cryptocurrency movement will be dead. Because there are altcoins around, they can kill Bitcoin if they targeted that. But in order to kill every coin, they have to create ASICs for all the different coins, right? It makes the job next to impossible, or I would say impossible, to kill every single coin out there.
Agreed.
So it makes it pointless for them to attack Bitcoin, because if they kill off the head of the snake, another one will show up,
Yeah.
right? I think that gives cryptocurrency resiliency, and that's actually good for the space.
No, and I agree, because it's like, if you liken this to another domain that's seen explosive growth, imagine the very first cell phone came out and the government squashed innovation on the first cell phone. That would not stop us from getting to where we are today with iPhones and Androids and stuff like that. There's always going to be that competition.
Yeah, competition is good, right? If
Yeah.
Google was the only search engine around, then they can start doing bad stuff, and they have, and people will have no choice but still use them. And it keeps Bitcoin in check. And stuff like MWEB, for example, is something that just won't happen on Bitcoin, because because Bitcoin is conservative, right? It's good for money to be conservative. So they're not going to adopt MWEB just like that,
Right.
But it's good that a coin like Litecoin can test out some cool features like MWEB and just see how well it works, right? See how much helps with fungibility and privacy, how much people use it, how exchanges would react to something like this. So it's really good for Litecoin to test out something like this. And I think making money more fungible and more private is a good thing. I think that's one of the missing features of Bitcoin.
I'll tell you what, I turned some no coiners into coiners in my personal life, simply because, with, what was it, 6 months ago with the Canada truckers and all the stuff that came from that, where if somebody donated $50 to the, like, hey, I kind of agree with those guys, and then they had hellfire rain down on them, whether it was their accounts at their banks locked or closed entirely. There was all kinds of repercussions because they essentially had the wrong belief system, or didn't go with the greater narrative. So I had some guys that I said, look, here's this, I'll hold up the newspaper. You see this article right here? This can't happen with Bitcoin. And like, you have a real world example that people can touch, taste, and smell, and they see on the news and their kids are talking about, and they think, oh, I could have avoided that problem that guy had if I did this other thing. And then there's the price and the history of the price, and to the moon and all that's separate. But at the core of it, the thing that got these guys to flip, and I have 2 or 3 good friends that put pretty sizable money into it, and that was what it took, was to have their eyes, that little aha moment of, ooh, okay, maybe I know the government's been good to me for the last whatever, however old they are, but doesn't mean it'll last forever.
Yeah, and it's all about financial freedom of money, I would call it, right?
Right.
Where you can do whatever you want with your own money, which is not the case in the current system.
Mm-hmm.
And most people won't realize it until it happens to them. It's it's similar to freedom of speech, right? Most people it doesn't affect most people, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have freedom of speech.
Right.
And if you don't have it when it affects you, you'll realize it when it affects you, right? Same with freedom of money. And that's the kind of the thing that Bitcoin brought to this space, which is decentralized money, where it's censorship resistant. Nobody can stop you from sending money to anywhere you want, and that's very important.
Okay, so with respect to MWEB and the update, let's jump into that a little bit. I guess first, before I have a couple questions kind of prepared for it, but why don't you give us kind of your explain like I'm five, like you're talking to someone who doesn't code or never has. How would you explain this update, and how would you explain the amount of work that went into it? Because I know it's years.
Yeah. So let's see. So right now with Bitcoin, all the transactions and the ledger is public, right? That's the thing about Bitcoin, where all the transactions are in a blockchain, and you can anyone can see which address sent how many Bitcoins to which other address, um, and that leads to an issue with it being used as money. With money, you want it to be fungible, which means that every Bitcoin is equal to every other Bitcoin. There's no difference. Just like if you go to a store, it doesn't matter which $20 bill you pull out to pay for coffee. It doesn't matter at all, because the coffee shop would accept any bill, and
Right.
you wouldn't leave any record of yourself, right? Of your finances. Whereas with Bitcoin, that's different. If you send Bitcoin to someone, they can see your balance, right? If you have like 10 Bitcoins and you sent them 0.01, they'll see that you sent yourself 9.99 Bitcoin and change, and that's how much money you have. And you can also track back to try to figure out how much money you have in your wallet. So because all that is public, it makes Bitcoin not very fungible. I don't know if people use Bitcoin. Sometimes you just have to go and choose the coins you want to send out, because you don't want to reveal more information than you need to the recipient. And what MWEB does is it fixes that. It makes Litecoin fungible. How it does that, the most important thing is that it hides the amount that's being sent on the public blockchain. So using cryptography, we can still confirm that the amount adds up, that I sent X number of coins to you, you received X coins, and I got Y coins and change. But no one else other than you and me will know how many coins were sent and how many coins I have. And all that is hidden in the public blockchain. So that makes your transactions much more fungible and also more private. I think financial privacy is very important, right? When I send you money, you shouldn't automatically be able to see how much money I have in my bank account, right? So that's what MWEB does,
Right.
and it does it in a way where it's very scalable. So in order to keep Bitcoin and Litecoin decentralized, scalability is very important, right? You don't want something that makes the blocks huge, because it makes it unwieldy and makes it harder for people to run nodes. And if it's hard for people to run nodes, it's less decentralized. So MWEB does financial privacy, fungibility, and privacy without sacrificing too much scalability, and that's kind of the key points.
Okay. Is there a kind of an easy way to explain the difference between, say, this update and Monero, or some of the privacy other coins like Zcash, and if the options ticked right and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so in general, most other privacy technology like Monero's ring signature and Zcash's ZK snarks, they use up a lot more block space and are more resource intensive. So it makes in general, it makes the blockchain more larger and less decentralized, harder to use, I would say. So I would say Monero's kind of fungibility and privacy is much better than MWEB, and also Zcash's is much better. Zcash's shielded transactions are much more private. So, and also MWEB is an opt-in, so you don't have to use MWEB. You can opt in to use it if you want to. But I think it's good enough, right? So there are trade-offs, right? If we go towards like the Monero and Zcash route, it's a big hit on scalability, and I think that really hurts for decentralization. So the trade-off is I would say like 90% there for fungibility, and that's good enough for most people, right?
Okay.
So if you're using MWeb for if you need a coin to use for like something illegal, money laundering, selling drugs, or anything like that, um, MWeb is not for you, right? You probably want something like Monero or Zcash so that everything is hidden and you can hide your tracks. But for most people, I would say that aren't really doing anything illegal. They just want some financial privacy so that their neighbors and friends don't know how much money they have. MWeb is perfect for that.
Gotcha. So as long as you're not Buck Rogers for real in the chat, hey Bucky, then you should be good to be happy with the MWeb. Gotcha. The wallet. And to add to that, and just thinking, I'm always trying to think ahead, to the next cycle and what the next 10 years might hold. The reality is Litecoin is pretty well accepted at just about every exchange, just about every new third-party app that comes up, be it Robinhood or whatever. They're very quick to accept Litecoin. So even a small, let's quote small upgrade, which this is not, but even if Litecoin had a small upgrade, I mean, it has a pretty big network effect across the board, I would think. So I think this is a bigger deal than people know right now because, obviously, like the big question is, okay, when Moon and when will Litecoin be worth $10 million each and that kind of stuff. But if you think of everything in terms of cycles, this to me is exactly what you'd want to see for the next cycle. Like thinking of it as a speculative investor, this occurring kind of in the bowels of the bear market is actually a really good thing to see because there will be momentum going up into the next cycle, in my opinion. And we'll wait and see. But that's my take.
It's funny you say that because when we actually launched MWeb, I had a lot of haters just saying like this is the worst time for you to launch MWeb. Why didn't you wait for the next bull cycle so that price would go up?
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're not like developing features to time bull bear cycles just for the price to go up. But you're right though. I mean, we're still working on it. So I mean, we just launched and it only works on the Litecoin Core wallet. It will still take some time for the rest of the community to adopt it, right? For wallets and other tools to start adopting MWeb. Because it's opt-in, everything still works as is. So like if you're an exchange, you don't have to update anything. Nothing breaks. And you can just use Litecoin normally without worrying about MWeb. But if you're a wallet provider and you want to support MWeb, it takes some work to add the new feature to accept to support sending to MWeb addresses.
Right.
So it will take some time before like the infrastructure gets built to fully support MWeb. And this is just a start. Yeah, I'd love to. We're working on adding MWeb to our own mobile wallet, Lite Wallet. That's going to take some time. And eventually wallets will support it and people will use more and more. Right now, there are 1,000 Litecoins on the MWeb side. There's actually an explorer you can use to check. It's called mwebexplorer.com. That's the URL. Check it out. You can actually go there right now and it will show like all the MWeb transactions for the past blocks, and then also how many MWeb coins are pegged into the MWeb extension block. So right now you see that there are 1,092 coins there.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I love the aspect of because I'm coming up on my what is it 6th or 7th year in the crypto space, and I love seeing the evolution of things. So you see Bitcoin and being the big clunky slow thing in the room, and then they add the Lightning side of it, and then you have Litecoin, which is always kind of the fast mover. And now you're adding the privacy aspect of it. So I love seeing these kind of evolutionary steps take place kind of right in front of you. And in the moment, you know, people see this is all they focus on. A lot of people, a lot of speculative investors, but long term, this is a big step. This is a big deal. And I think people are kind of poo-pooing how big a deal it is.
Yeah, I mean, I can't control price, right? I can't control the bear market or bull market. But what we do is just continue to work on improving the coin. And the I mean, the coin is Litecoin is better today than it was a year ago because of it has more fungibility now. And that's all we can do. And eventually the price will catch up, I believe.
Yeah, and I think so too. Well, what was it? Weren't you at you? When I say you, I mean Litecoin. Wasn't Litecoin at say $5 for a matter of years, and then suddenly went to 300? You know, in one cycle. I mean, things get crazy really quick.
Yeah, like in 2013, Litecoin spiked up to $50, and then dropped back down to like $2. And it was at around $4 for a long time. There was even like a meme making fun of how Litecoin is always $4 and it's a stable coin.
Right.
Because it was at $4 for like a couple of years. I mean, hovering around $4. And then with SegWit, with the 2017 bull market, it went all the way to 360. Some exchanges was 400, dropped back down to $23, and then went up to like $400 again last year, and now it's at 60. It's crazy. Yeah, it's not for the retarded. Owning Bitcoin is volatile enough, but owning Litecoin is crazy. But yeah, I think MWEB is going to be big. I'm very excited that it launched without any issues. Right, we worked very hard on it, but it's hard to predict like the bugs that we'll see. I mean, it's a big change. It's it is the biggest change that we've done with Litecoin ever. So very excited about that.
Well, I like it. One of the well, let me ask you this really quick. So just because we're talking about price and stuff, what's your prediction for bear market low for Bitcoin? Like, what's the most like worst case horrific thing that you could see happening price wise?
Price wise, I think from my experience, it can go as low, if not a little bit lower than the second to last peak, right? So talking about 20,000, right? The
Okay.
peak before the current one was 20,000,
Right.
and I've seen it retrace all the way back to the previous peak, so and overshoot that. So I would say if it gets to 20,000, it will be a great time to buy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it may not get there, right? The low might have been what happened a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
But who knows?
So I am one of the very few kind of vocal proponents of the fact that I think we're in the lows. Like, I think we're forming over the next few months what's going to, in hindsight, go on to be, you know, this kind of consolidation, whatever, and then off we go into after leaving this kind of bear market low, and who knows after that. But I'm a big believer in that because, number one, you know, if you believe in the regression curve at all, you know, we're right along it. Now, not to say it can't wick down for a day or two or whatever. I mean, we saw that during COVID, you know, the big COVID dump. So anything can happen, right? But we have that. I don't know if you're a fan of the 200-week EMA, but historically speaking, this is where, you know, our bear market lows have come in, right at it, and then here we are right at it again. And then the last thing was, and this is kind of only something that traders really use, but it's called a pivot, and it's a mathematically calculated level. And if I just kind of remove everything once again, you could see that the last few, what they call the S1, it's like the first support, has really been right where our bear markets have ended, and lo and behold, that's what we hit a few weeks ago. So that's kind of, I'm actually turning bullish. This is why I have this kind of bull head back here. I've spent 6 months having a bear head hanging behind me, and
Hmm.
people were very ugly about that. Call me Bear Jack, all kinds of stuff. But I was a real, and then conceptually, coming down, and right now we're at a price lower. Like you, chat, have the opportunity to buy, whether it's Bitcoin, Litecoin, whatever. You have the opportunity to buy your favorite thing for prices that haven't been seen in a year and a half or more, almost 2 years. So to some that's scary, sure, but to others that's like a really good opportunity when you combine all these things.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna trade this, I mean, you would buy this low. If it goes lower, just keep some capital to buy more, right? Dollar cost average in.
Sure.
Like I don't think it's going to zero. So as long as you're not forced out of the market, you can outlast this bear market, right? And you come out on top. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the philosophy the whole time.
You actually, I don't, whether you meant to or not, I don't think you meant to, but you changed my perspective on buying into fear years ago, probably 4 years ago, back when we were just talking about, little collectible trades and stuff like that. But you said something along the time, like price went down, and I was scared at the time, and I said something to you about it, or maybe in a group chat or something, and your response was, "Are we still at roughly 10-minute blocks? Okay, is Satoshi's stack still there? Then what's the issue?" And it was like very much a, speculator's going to speculate. You can't control price, and I don't know. It just really it resonated with me. It was like, oh yeah, yeah, that's true. As long as the core tenets of Bitcoin are still working, as long as the thing is still functional, then what are you worried about? Long term.
Yeah, I mean the fundamentals haven't changed, right? When I got in this space, Bitcoin was $30, and I watched it drop all the way to 2, and I realized that the fundamentals haven't changed. It's just speculation. People push it, overshot the real value, whatever that is, to $30, and then now it's back to $2, which was I believe undervalued at that time. So I bought more, right? So as long just you can't get scared and think that Bitcoin's going to zero.
Right.
There's no reason why it would go to zero because it's still the best money on the planet.
But it's
Yeah.
boiling our
So,
oceans, Charlie.
yeah, but so is everything else. I mean, that's a lot of stuff out there. It's true that it uses a lot of energy, but it's for good reasons.
As we have above ground nuclear tests over the water and stuff. But that's fine. It's fine. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, so I think it's very interesting that I don't, and you talked about in your long tweet storm. Again, I'm gonna link this for the chat. In this tweet storm, you talked about how hard it was to come up with the Genesis block for Litecoin, which is something I've never thought about in my life. I've never once thought about like how hard it would be to actually come up with a Genesis block. And you talked about having to reverse engineer it, and you kind of finally managed to come up with a way to do it to where people could still run their test net, but then plug in a final couple things at the end and kick things off. But in how it was really, what did you say, 2 or 3 Genesis blocks, like in reality for the Litecoin chain? Um, that was funny to me. But anyway, I didn't know if you wanted to expand on that or talk about that or whatever.
Yeah. So when I launched Litecoin in October 2011, there weren't that many other altcoins out there. So it wasn't like there's no playbook about how to launch an altcoin. So I kind of had to figure it out on my own. Right. And then creating the Genesis block was harder than people thought because there wasn't code out there. Actually, I should take that back. There was some code out there. I think I remember I talking to Gavin and Tristan about it, and I think he sent me some code snippet that Satoshi might have written. I don't remember right now, but it was not very usable, so I had to kind of figure it out based off of that. But creating a Genesis block, it's kind of just mining, right? You're mining the first block, but it's a special block where with like the just the anchor of the whole blockchain, and it was just a little bit different and a little bit hard to figure out how to do. But once I got it, it took like a few hours to actually mine that block on my computer. So I just sat there, the computer running for like 4 or 5 hours, and then finally spit out the block. And that was the Genesis block. So it was a cool experience, definitely.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, another question that I had too, and it's somewhat related because it's about your early days and everything. Um, Talk to me about Coinbase, and then and like how you feel about it today. Like, what's your thought on Coinbase itself, like the company, if you feel like sharing?
Um, I mean, Coinbase was just a very good company to work at. Right? It was when I decided to join Coinbase. I was still at Google at the time. It was a very small company. It was only 4 or 5 people back then when I joined.
Okay.
It was a
Wow.
startup. I thought it was doing. The reason I joined Coinbase is I thought it was making Bitcoin easy, right? Making Bitcoin easy,
Adoption
and
wise?
I thought it was very important for Bitcoin to succeed is for companies like Coinbase to make Bitcoin easy for anyone, right? Before Coinbase, people had to wire money to Japan to like Mt. Gox to buy
Yeah.
Bitcoins,
Right.
or use another shady exchange somewhere outside the US, right? So Coinbase really made it easy. Initially, it was just a brokerage service where you can connect your bank account and then just say, I want to buy $100 worth of Bitcoin. It will do an ACH transfer and then give you the Bitcoin. And that was just very simple. And then Coinbase launched an exchange, which made trading easy for people also. And now, I mean, Coinbase is a big behemoth in this space. It's doing everything. Um, Recently, from this bear market, the stock has crashed pretty drastically. It's actually lost more in value than almost any other shitcoin out there, which is pretty crazy how Coinbase stock trades just like a shitcoin.
It does.
But I think I think it'll do well in the future. I do think that yeah, it's good position in the space to do well in the next bull market.
So I've heard some people refer to it as a like a shitcoin casino. I mean, how do you share that sentiment, or do you think they're doing what they have to do to survive, or what do you think about all that?
I do think that some of the choices they made about which coins to launch is kind of silly. Um, yeah, I don't understand like why they would launch a coin. There was a coin related to like a pet something. I forgot what the name of the coin
Hmm.
was, and the market cap was like in the millions. It was like $10 million market cap. Like trade volume would be in the thousands, and I don't understand the point of launching a coin um, where you make like $100 a day from trading fees. Um, it doesn't make sense unless like they're doing it to pump the coin value in like maybe one of the VCs
Yeah.
launch the coin or support the coin, and that's a wrong decision to launch a coin that way. So I definitely don't see that as good. I've seen some of these launches that are questionable. Yeah, and also recently the news about Coinbase rescinding offers that made out to people. I think that's just a really bad move.
Mm.
They should have known ahead of time there was a bear market coming and not given offers to people, and then after they accepted the offer, rescind the offer. Because people like I just today heard a story about someone was deciding to go to a PhD or take another job, but then decided to take Coinbase job. This was in March. They accepted Coinbase's offer was going to start, and then all of a sudden Coinbase rescinded the offer. Now
Yee.
they're shit out of luck. The other offers are not on the table anymore, and they can't go back to school. It's like this is just like
That
it's really
hurts.
bad to do something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof. Well, going through this tweet storm, that you provided, I found one thing that was really funny. And so I'd imagine seeing kind of what Coinbase has become and what they do and stuff, it may feel a little bit like Frankenstein looking at its monster. But I saw that you actually kind of helped put the proposal to add Litecoin and Ethereum to Coinbase in the early days, back in the whatever 2013 or whatever the date was back then. Oh, 2016, I guess it was. But that was funny. I didn't know that. I thought Brian Armstrong came out the gate ready for alts, and that was part of his big vision and everything. So this actually educated me, some of your
No, I mean,
background.
I would say I'm the main reason why Coinbase is a shitcoin casino today.
Do you does that hurt a little bit inside, or are you fine with it?
No, I mean, it's made Coinbase a lot of money, right? So as a company, the goal is to make money, is to provide service that people want, right? So on one hand, it's bad that they're launching some shitcoin that that has no trade volume. I think that's
Right.
going too far. But it's good for them to support Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and all these other coins that people like to trade, and it's good service for Coinbase to provide. So yeah, so like in what is it, 2015, when Coinbase was a Bitcoin only company for a long time, for
Right.
years, right? So back then, Litecoin was number 2 in the market cap ranking, and Ethereum was up and coming. It was kind of shooting up. It was becoming very popular. So I proposed to Brian and Fred, the founders, that we should look into adding altcoins to Coinbase, Ethereum and Litecoin specifically for now, because it's what people want, and we can make more money that way. And it took a while to convince them, but they were initially just convinced to add Ethereum, and then eventually added Litecoin also.
Gotcha. Understood. Okay. Um, I think that's it for like the prepared stuff that I had. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover? Anything that I think, you know what? Let me hit you with this, because this is something I had several people message me about this. So after MWEB, and this is not related to like what can pump my bags or anything like that, but just kind of like big picture, what do you see in the future for Litecoin, or do you even have anything outlined right now?
I think there's still a lot of stuff to do to improve MWEB. Like, let me think about, like, payment proof that you paid something via MWEB is something that'll be useful. What else? Adding, working on something like Dandelion, just more features to help with fungibility and privacy. There's like a coin swap feature that can be very useful. It's kind of like a coin mixer built on top of MWEB, because MWEB has hidden amounts. It's much better for things like coin swap, coin mixing than Bitcoin, right? Because the amounts you can't really mix, and you can't match the inputs and outputs because you can't see the amounts. With coin mixing on Bitcoin today, and even Ethereum, you can try to match. If I sent 1.1 Bitcoin, and then there's an output for 1.1 Bitcoin, even though there's a lot of inputs and outputs, you can try to guess that this input and that output match because it's 1.1 instead of a whole number or some other number. So having amounts being hidden makes it much better for mixing, if that's what you want to do.
Okay. And is this something that could go on to be, I know this is either a really fun word or a 4-letter word, depending on your perspective, but some kind of decentralized exchange based on Litecoin, or like a DEX, anything like that? Like, is that functionality available, since that's what some people like to play around with and toy with, or not?
Yeah, there's something called, there's a team building smart contract on top of Bitcoin and Litecoin, the legacy POW coins. It's called Bitcoin Computer. You can Google it. Yeah, the website is bitcoincomputer.io. It's building smart contracts on top of Bitcoin, Litecoin, and that would allow you to do a lot of stuff you can currently do with Ethereum, including DEXs and stuff.
Games, social networks, etc. Man, if somebody can crack the code for a decentralized social network, and or at the same time implementing some sort of ownership into games, for items and stuff, I think they're the next billionaire. Honestly, I think that's where it's at.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is decentralization comes at a cost, right? So there's no free lunch, right? The way to make things decentralized is to kind of duplicate work, right? So with Bitcoin, for example, all nodes are running the same work, like checking the blocks, making sure everything's okay, all transactions are good. And if there are 100,000 nodes, then you're duplicating the work 100,000 times, right? And that cost is, someone needs to bear that cost. The network, no one's going to do it for free, right? So right now, like miners are making money from mining blocks, right? So that comes at a cost. So if you want a social network that's decentralized, it will cost like 10,000 times more expensive than a centralized social network. So who's paying that cost, right? Is there a reason for this to be decentralized? Everyone's trying to do blockchain this, blockchain that, but there's no reason for a centralized database would work just fine for 99.9% of the apps out there, right? Agreed. So that's something you have to ask yourself if it's worth it and who's paying the cost.
But the VCs told me it was worth it, Charlie. They would never be against me.
And a lot of times, most of the time, this cost is paid by an ICO token, right? A token that is kind of, in some sense, it's basically a Ponzi, right? Most of these are just Ponzi tokens where it's used to pay for the kind of the startup of this network, and the price of the token is you need more people to get into the space to buy the token for it to survive. So in that sense, it's a Ponzi for the most part.
Interesting. You need that network effect, just like a social media. It's not going to take off unless there's enough users. So you got to have the same thing.
But it has to add value, right? If you're doing like a token that adds no value, then it's effectively just a Ponzi.
Yeah, no disagreement there. They've been working on it since 2018. I think it's interesting that a lot of people don't know that Bitcoin has the ability for privacy and smart contracts as well. So they may say, well, I use Ethereum because they're the only ones with smart contracts. And you're like, well, not really. They're just the only ones really going gung-ho with it right this second.
Yeah. I mean, you can do like what Bitcoin Computer is doing. You guys should check it out. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'll link it in the chat too. Okay, well, Charlie, look, I appreciate you being here, and I want to respect your time. Is there anything else that you want to say or leave people with? Anything you want to shill? Anything you're raising donations for? Anything like that?
I mean, check out Litecoin.net, which is our foundation website. Basically, we support Litecoin. And if people are interested in Litecoin and cryptocurrency in general, come to our Litecoin Summit, which is happening in October 21st this year in Vegas. Tickets are available now, and it would be cool to meet everyone there.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay. But Charlie, I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. It's always love to have you chat. Thanks for hanging out on a strange time on a Friday for when I usually stream. And yeah, Charlie, hope we'll have to do it again and catch up sooner than a year and a half from now.
Yeah. Thanks, Jack. And thanks for having Litecoin in your logo. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. But hey, before you leave, I want you to know that, so I have all these little things in the back, little this and that's that I've collected. But one of my favorite things to talk about is the old coinographic, and especially, I like giving real world life lessons, so people may see this in the back and say, whoa, what is that thing? That looks cool. And I'll lead off and say, yeah, it's got 25 Litecoin on it. Do you see how it says that? And then I'll hit them with what actually happened to you. And
it's a beautiful coin. I have one of those. Actually, did I sell you mine?
You did. Yeah. The one that you got scammed on. I understand some of them.
It's a nice looking coin. But yeah, there's supposed to be 25 Litecoins on it, and the creator of that coin kept the private keys and stole all the coins after a few years. Pretty sad.
Douchebag. All right, my friend, that's it. Well, thank you so much for being here. You have a good rest of your day, okay?
Yeah, you too. See you in a year and a half.
No. All right, see you, Charlie. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
I'm not trying to be perma bulljack, perma bearjack, just charts jack. Just whatever the charts are telling you, that is all I'm good for. That's all I'm here for. And nothing else. I'm not your hype man. I'm not your bear guy telling you to sell.